Hi guys, I hope you're having a splendid day out there and welcome. As you might know, I was recently on a 3-month journey into India. I went to Sri Lanka and I went to the Maldives. And during this trip, I learned a little bit about these countries, which is cool. I always love learning about countries. But today I wanted to specifically talk about India and my experiences, and I wanted to hand over tips that I wish I knew before I traveled to India. That's a good title for this video. What the hell? So first off the list of things that I wished I knew before I traveled to India was how easy it was to use Uber or an app called Ola Cabs, which is basically the same thing as Uber. When I landed in Delhi, I was prepared on the onslaught of taxi drivers wanting me to drive with their cab into the city, and I was pretty confused. It's been a long journey and I'm like, where do I look? Where do I go? As the journey went on, we learned about Ola Cabs and the Uber app and how easy it was in the bigger cities to use. Ever since we started using it, we never stopped using it. It just made everything so much easier because you don't have to haggle any prices. You just tell the app, this is where I want to go this time, and you get a cost. And most of the time, the prices are half as much as what the cab drivers will tell you on the street, so that is also a big plus. But in order to do this, you will need something that is the next point in this list, and that is a SIM card, an Indian SIM card. That was actually one of the first things that we fixed when we came to India. And when you get an Indian SIM card, you also get 4G and an internet connection pretty much everywhere in the bigger cities. Let me emphasize on the bigger cities. And you can look up places, you can read about certain things, and it's really good. And you can even translate things that you don't understand what it means. So that's a good tip for you if you're traveling to India. Another tip while traveling to India is a tip that I recommend you to do pretty much everywhere you're traveling, and that is to learn the language that they're speaking in the country that you're visiting. And I'm not talking about you have to learn the whole language, but learn short phrases of Hindi and you will get so much further than if you were only to rely on English. Not that Indians don't speak English, but it's a way of breaking the barrier of you being a tourist, and suddenly you have something to talk about. Oh, you speak Hindi, and you're like, toda toda. It's a great recommendation and maybe a thing to do while on the plane before landing in India, to study some Hindi phrases. Another tip for you while visiting India is to try the vegetarian food. It's delicious, and one of the things about India I love the most. I'm a vegetarian myself, so traveling to India was a really nice trip because there were vegetarian food pretty much everywhere. It was almost like in some places being vegetarian was the norm and being non-vegetarian was not the norm. And I'm sure you guys have heard that the Indian food is amazing, but it truly is. And there's a lot of really good vegetarian dishes that I urge you to try out. And with that said, we are coming to the next tip on this list. You've done a whole day, you've been walking, you've been grabbing money, you know, before you're eating, because you're gonna eat a lot with your hands. And if you have a hand sanitizer or wet wipes or anything, that will decrease the chance of you becoming sick. And that's not a thing you wanna be on a journey to India. And the next thing on this list is something that we Swedes, as myself, had a really difficult time with, and that is to haggle. But I urge you, when you go to India, haggle about everything. Taxi journeys, food, clothes, lotions. Why would you? You should haggle as much as you can because that is part of the Indian culture, to haggle. Maybe you're from a country where haggling is perfectly normal, but if you're from a country like Sweden, it's gonna feel really weird. Because in Sweden, if you tell somebody a price, that is the price, and you don't haggle with it. But in India, they will tell you a price that is mostly maybe 3 times as high as they would normally take. So just haggle your brains out. On to the next item in this list. When you ask somebody in India, how long would this be? How long will it be until the taxi arrives? And they will say 5 minutes. It can mean anything between 5 minutes and 45 minutes. And this is a good thing to know because at least in Sweden, when you say 5 minutes, it means 5 minutes. It doesn't mean 45 minutes. When you arrange a meeting here in Sweden and the person that you're supposed to meet isn't there on the appointed time, you wait maybe 1 or 2 minutes and then you start calling, well, where the hell are you? You can see why this was a problem for us Swedes when we were traveling in India. We were expecting when people say 10 minutes, we expect it to be 10 minutes. This is ridiculous, but it's really good to know before you go that this occurs sometimes. On to the next one, which is a reminder and something that you need to keep in your mind all of the time. But the traffic in the bigger cities in India is crazy. I mean, it's crazy. When you're out walking on the street, you need to be really careful. You have to have your eyes open. If you want to rent a bike or something, be really careful and wear a helmet. Please, goddammit, people, wear helmets. It's a well-known fact that the Indian Railway is a pretty popular system for traveling in India, but I didn't realize how popular it was until we wanted to go from one place to another with the train. Basically, you have two options if you want to travel from one city to another using the train, and that is to either book really long in advance, like really long, like 1 or 2 months, or you do as we were suggested by Indians, and that is to book the train ticket 1 day before the train departs. And this is because they open up a lot of seats the day before, and if you go to a travel agent, they will be able to fix that booking for you. But you need to be on time because the tickets will be running out faster than you can say Lurlenskrull. That's not even a word, but we're gonna make it a word now. Lurlenskrull. What does it mean? It means to feel lightheaded. Yes. And another tip while traveling to India is to visit the local animal shelters while you're there. When I was traveling in India, we visited a lot of different dog and cat shelters, and it's awesome. And if you want to help out, you can do that. Or if you just want to cuddle with puppies and kittens, you can do that as well. That's a good tip to do because there's a lot of animals in India that requires love. And while you're there, you might just do that. Just help out. Alright, those were some tips for traveling in India. And if you have more tips that you want to share, maybe you're from India and you know, what the hell, why didn't he mention this? Then please post that in the comment section down below. And people can learn from that as well. I hope you had a splendid time here together with me because I had a splendid time together with you. And until the next time I see you and your pretty face, have a splendid day. Bye!